A tenure cut short, Rishi Sunak's brief time at the helm. Rishi Sunak's tenure as Prime Minister was marked by a series of unprecedented challenges. Assuming office in the wake of Boris Johnson's tumultuous resignation, Sunak inherited a nation grappling with the economic fallout of the COVID-19 pandemic and the ongoing war in Ukraine. Despite his background as Chancellor of the Exchequer, Sunak struggled to navigate the complex economic landscape. Soaring inflation, rising energy costs, and a cost-of-living crisis gripped the nation, eroding public confidence in his leadership. Sunak's attempts to mitigate these crises were met with mixed reactions. While some praised his efforts to provide financial assistance to struggling households and businesses, others criticized his policies as insufficient or poorly targeted. The looming shadow of the Exchequer economic challenges and public discontent. The UK economy, already reeling from the impact of Brexit, faced significant headwinds during Sunak's time in office. The COVID-19 pandemic had left its mark with supply chain disruptions and reduced consumer spending contributing to a slowdown in economic growth. Sunak's tenure as Chancellor saw the implementation of various economic policies, including the furlough scheme and business loans aimed at mitigating the pandemic's impact. However, these measures also contributed to a significant increase in government borrowing, leaving the UK with a substantial budget deficit. The war in Ukraine further exacerbated the economic situation, leading to a surge in energy prices and adding to inflationary pressures. The rising cost of living became a central concern for many Britons, eroding their purchasing power and fueling a sense of economic insecurity. The cost of living crisis, fueling frustration and eroding trust. The cost of living crisis emerged as a defining challenge during Sunak's time as Prime Minister. The sharp rise in energy bills, food prices, and other essential goods placed significant strain on household budgets, particularly for low and middle-income families. Sunak's government introduced various measures to address the cost of living crisis, including a one-off payment to help with energy bills and a cut to fuel duty. However, these measures were widely criticised as inadequate and failing to keep pace with the rising cost of living. The perception that Sunak, a wealthy former investment banker, was out of touch with the struggles of ordinary Britons grew, further eroding public trust in his leadership. The cost of living crisis became a potent symbol of the government's perceived inability to effectively address the concerns of its citizens. Social discord and political fallout, navigating a divided nation. Sunak's premiership unfolded against a backdrop of heightened social and political polarisation. The Brexit referendum of 2016 exposed deep divisions within British society. The COVID-19 pandemic and its lockdowns further exacerbated these tensions, with disagreements over restrictions and vaccine mandates fueling social unrest. Sunak's government faced criticism from both sides, making it challenging to build consensus and unite the country. Section 5. The Partygate Scandal, a blow to public trust. The Partygate scandal, which erupted in late 2021, dealt a significant blow to public trust in the Conservative government and cast a long shadow over Sunak's premiership. Revelations of parties and social gatherings held at 10 Downing Street during COVID-19 lockdowns, in apparent breach of the government's own rules, sparked widespread anger and outrage. Sunak, who was Chancellor at the time, was himself fined by the police for attending one such gathering. The scandal further fueled the perception that the government was out of touch with the sacrifices being made by ordinary Britons during the pandemic. The Partygate scandal undermined public confidence in the government's integrity and eroded trust in its handling of the pandemic. It also damaged the reputation of the Conservative Party, making it more difficult for Sunak to unite his party and project an image of competence and leadership. Section 6. The legacy of Boris Johnson, a lingering shadow over Sunak's leadership. The legacy of Boris Johnson, Sunak's predecessor, loomed large over his premiership. Johnson's tumultuous tenure, marked by scandals, controversies, and a perceived lack of seriousness, had left the Conservative Party divided and damaged its reputation among the electorate. Sunak, who had served as Johnson's Chancellor, faced the challenge of distancing himself from his predecessor's legacy while also trying to unite a fractured party. This proved to be a delicate balancing act, as many Conservative MPs and party members remained loyal to Johnson and critical of Sunak's role in his downfall. Johnson's shadow continued to haunt Sunak throughout his time in office, making it difficult for him to establish his own authority and vision for the country. The perception that Sunak was tainted by association with Johnson's scandals and missteps hindered his ability to win over voters and rebuild trust in the Conservative Party. Section 7. Strategic missteps and missed opportunities, the campaign trail. Sunak's election campaign was marked by a series of strategic missteps and missed opportunities that ultimately contributed to his defeat. The campaign lacked a clear and compelling message that resonated with voters, particularly those who had abandoned the Conservative Party in recent years. Sunak's focus on economic competence and fiscal responsibility failed to inspire voters who were more concerned with the immediate challenges of the cost of living crisis. His attempts to portray himself as a safe pair of hands were undermined by his association with the scandals and controversies of the Johnson era. The campaign also struggled to effectively counter the opposition's attacks, particularly on issues such as the NHS and social care. Sunak's perceived lack of charisma and his inability to connect with voters on an emotional level further hampered his chances of success. Section 8. The opposition's surge capitalizing on discontent. The opposition Labour Party, under the leadership of Keir Starmer, capitalized on the public's dissatisfaction with the Conservative government to secure a decisive victory in the election. Starmer, a former director of public prosecutions, positioned himself as a serious and competent alternative to Sunak, offering a message of change and renewal. Labour's campaign focused on key issues such as the cost of living crisis, the NHS and social care, exploiting public anxieties about these areas to erode Conservative support. Starmer also benefited from the perception that he was a more trustworthy and likeable figure than Sunak. The Liberal Democrats, under the leadership of Ed Davey, also made significant gains in the election, capitalizing on their opposition to Brexit and their focus on local issues. The combined surge of Labour and the Liberal Democrats left the Conservatives with their worst electoral performance in decades. Section 9. The verdict, a confluence of factors leading to defeat. Rishi Sunak's defeat stemmed from economic challenges, political polarization, and strategic missteps. The cost of living crisis eroded public trust in the Conservative government. Sunak's efforts were seen as inadequate, and his association with Johnson's scandals hurt him. The opposition offered a message of change, exploiting public discontent. The results were a significant repudiation of the Conservative Party. Section 10. The future of the Conservative Party, charting a path forward. In the wake of their electoral defeat, the Conservative Party faces the daunting task of rebuilding and redefining itself for the future. The party must confront the reasons for its loss, address internal divisions, and develop a compelling vision that resonates with voters. One key challenge will be to bridge the gap between the party's traditional base and the younger, more diverse electorate. The Conservatives must also grapple with the legacy of Brexit, which continues to divide the country and shape the political landscape. The party's next leader will need to possess a rare combination of qualities, including strong leadership skills, a clear vision for the country, and the ability to unite a fractured party. The Conservatives must also demonstrate that they have learned from the mistakes of the past and are committed to governing in the national interest. Section 11. Sunak's legacy, a time of unprecedented challenges. Rishi Sunak's time as Prime Minister will be remembered as a period of unprecedented challenges and turbulence. He assumed office at a time of national crisis, inheriting an economy ravaged by the COVID-19 pandemic and facing the looming threat of war in Europe. While Sunak's premiership was cut short, his tenure will likely be defined by his handling of the cost of living crisis and the Partygate scandal, both of which contributed to a decline in public trust and ultimately led to his electoral defeat. Despite his best efforts, Sunak was unable to overcome the weight of these challenges and unite a divided nation. His legacy will be debated for years to come, but his time in office serves as a stark reminder of the fragility of political power and the importance of public trust in a democracy.